My grandmother's attic has always been a place that intrigued me. It was a dusty space filled with forgotten boxes and furniture covered by white sheets, as if it held secrets from another era. I used to play there as a child, but as the years went by, the attic became a less explored territory. Now, the visit felt like a blend of nostalgia and mystery. As I climbed the creaky stairs, the smell of mildew and old wood filled my nostrils, and I felt like an explorer in search of treasures. Then I saw it. Wrapped in a yellowed fabric, the wedding dress hung on a hanger, almost as if it were waiting for me. My heart raced. That dress seemed so out of place, yet so familiar at the same time. I approached slowly, as if I were about to touch something sacred. When my fingers brushed the fabric, a wave of emotion hit me. It was as if the dress were calling to me, as though I had an inexplicable connection to it. "What do you hide, dear?" I murmured to myself while stroking the delicate fabric. Dust danced around us, and I closed my eyes, letting my imagination flow. My grandmother always spoke about the family history, but she never mentioned the dress. What had happened to the bride who once wore it? My curiosity consumed me. I decided I needed to try on the dress. The thought filled me with a mix of excitement and nervousness. After all, it wasn't every day that one got the chance to wear something so special. With some effort, I took the dress off the hanger. It felt heavier than I expected, as if it carried the weight of past memories. After a bit of struggle, I managed to slip the piece on. As the fabric settled around me, a cold breeze swept through the room, making me shiver. "What was that?" I asked aloud, but the only answer I got was the echo of my own voice. I looked into the dusty mirror in front of me, and for a brief moment, I saw something that made me catch my breath. My reflection was there, but behind me stood a woman in an old wedding dress. She had a sad, lost look, as if she were trapped in a moment of her life that could never be completed. When I turned quickly, the image vanished like a shadow in the light. My heart raced, and a wave of adrenaline coursed through my body. "Calm down, Sarah. It was just your imagination," I tried to convince myself, but restlessness took hold of me. What had I seen? That woman, who was she? The dress seemed to vibrate with energy, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was wrong. I carefully took off the dress and hung it back on the hanger. My mind was racing, filled with questions. What should I do now? I looked around, as if expecting something or someone to give me an answer. I need to tell Kevin, I decided, grabbing my phone and sending a quick message. He had always been my best friend, and more importantly, he was curious and fearless, just like me. If there was something to this story, he would want to know. "Kevin, you won't believe what I found in my grandmother's attic. An old wedding dress and something more. Can we meet?" I wrote, pressing send with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. While waiting for his response, I sat on the dusty attic floor, letting my mind wander. The dress was beautiful, with delicate details that seemed handcrafted. It was a true work of art, but why was it there? What had happened to the bride who once wore it? Part of me wanted to go home and forget that strange feeling, but another part was fascinated, almost hypnotized by the story unfolding before me. "Sarah." Kevin's voice echoed from the staircase, and I quickly got to my feet, nearly tripping over my own anxiety. He appeared in the attic, breathless and with a curious look on his face. "What did you find?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "A wedding dress," I replied, pointing to the hanger. "But it's not just that. I felt something when I wore it. A strange presence, as if it were connected to someone." Kevin moved closer, examining the dress closely. He had a way of making things seem more exciting. "Are you serious?" He raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "What did you see?" "I saw a woman behind me in the mirror," I confessed, my voice trembling slightly. "It was as if she were trapped in that dress. I can't explain it, but I feel that there's a story behind this." Kevin paused and looked at me, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Sarah, you know these things often have stories behind them. We can investigate if you want. I don't want you to go through this alone. I felt relief wash over me at his words. The idea of investigating made me nervous, but at the same time, something inside me clamored for it. Would you be up for it? I asked, a glimmer of hope in my eyes. Of course. He replied, deciding that the adventure was just beginning. Let's find out who this woman is and what happened to her. My heart raced at the thought. We were about to dive into a mystery that could change everything. I knew that dress held secrets, and I was determined to uncover them, no matter what that meant. The night after my engagement rehearsal was one of the most restless I had ever experienced. As soon as I closed my eyes, darkness transformed into a whirlwind of images. The wedding dress I had found in my grandmother's attic lingered in my mind like a ghost, and the touch of that aged fabric seemed to leave a mark on my soul. When I finally fell asleep, I was immediately dragged into a vivid nightmare. In the dream, I was at a wedding ceremony, but it wasn't mine. I wasn't the bride. Instead, I watched a woman in a white dress, with a veil obscuring her face. The atmosphere was charged with expectation. The air was warm, but there was a palpable tension, as if something was about to go wrong. The guests' voices murmured in anxious tones, and I could feel a dark presence closing in. Then, a scream echoed, and the scene distorted into flashes of chaos and pain. The woman disappeared, leaving me alone in a sea of confused and terrified faces. I woke up with my heart racing, sweat trickling down my forehead. I glanced at the clock on my bedside table. It was 3 a.m. The darkness of the room felt more oppressive than ever, and I knew I wouldn't be able to fall back asleep. I got up, trying to shake off the sense of despair that enveloped me. I walked to the kitchen, where the light from the refrigerator illuminated the room, and made myself a warm cup of tea, hoping the comforting aroma would soothe me. Sarah, are you okay? Kevin's voice suddenly echoed, making my heart skip a beat. He had appeared in the kitchen doorway, a look of concern on his face. I couldn't sleep either. I heard you moving around and came to see what was going on. Just had a nightmare, I replied, trying to downplay the intensity of what I was really feeling. It was strange. Strange how? You look scared. Kevin stepped closer, his deep blue eyes reflecting genuine concern. He had always been a loyal friend, and I knew I couldn't hide this from him for long. It was about a wedding, but it wasn't mine. There was a bride, and something went terribly wrong. I couldn't see her face, but the feeling of despair was overwhelming. It was as if she were trapped somewhere, I said, my voice choking up. This has to do with the dress, doesn't it? Kevin asked, crossing his arms. He already knew the story I had shared about my grandmother's wedding dress and the strange connection I felt when I touched it. You must be thinking about it a lot. The mind is powerful, Sarah. Sometimes, it takes us to dark places. I know, but it's more than that. It's like I feel connected to her in some way. I feel like there's something I need to uncover. The desperation in my voice was undeniable. What if this isn't just a dream? What if it's a warning or something I need to understand? Kevin leaned against the kitchen counter, deep in thought. Hashtag, have you ever thought about investigating the story of the dress? There might be something more you don't know, something that explains these feelings. Do you think I should? I asked hesitantly. The idea of diving into something so deep and dark intimidated me, but at the same time, a part of me felt it was necessary. I think you should. And I'll be here to help you. Together, let's discover what happened to that woman, to Loretta. What do you think? The determination in his eyes gave me a little courage. Okay. Let's do it, I agreed, resolute. I felt the need to understand what was going on, not just to help the woman who seemed trapped somewhere, but also to understand what was happening inside me. In the days that followed, we plunged into a frantic research effort. The town where my grandmother had grown up held many secrets, and we were determined to unravel them. Kevin brought old books from the local library, and we spent hours poring over newspapers, marriage records, and obituaries. Every page we turned seemed to heighten the tension that hung in the air. "Look at this," Kevin said, pointing to a yellowed page in an old newspaper. "Here's an article about Loretta's disappearance. It says she vanished on her wedding day." That name echoed in my mind like a bell. Loretta. The woman who seemed so real in my dreams. What else does it say? What happened? I asked, anxious. It seems the ceremony was interrupted. It says her fiancé left her at the altar. No one knows what happened to her after that. It's like she disappeared off the map. Kevin's expression had turned grave. That's scary. Scary and intriguing at the same time, I murmured, my mind racing. If she vanished, maybe that explains the feeling that she's trapped. Like she's been waiting for something or someone. Kevin nodded, but there was a shadow of concern on his face. "Sarah, you need to be careful. This could be more than just an old story. If you connect too deeply to this, it could be dangerous." "I know, but I feel like I need to do this. For Loretta and for myself. I can't just ignore it now." The determination in my voice was clear, even as anxiety built in my chest. That night, before I slept, I couldn't shake the visions that surged in my mind. Loretta appeared again, but now it was more intense. I could feel her pain, her confusion. It was as if she were calling to me, asking for help. I was so engrossed that I couldn't tell what was real and what was just an echo of her anguish. When I finally fell asleep, I was pulled back into the dream, and this time, I was in a cemetery. The sky was overcast, and the feeling of despair was palpable. I walked between the gravestones, sensing an inexplicable connection to that place. There was something there calling to me, and I couldn't resist. "Loretta!" I shouted, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. The gravestones seemed to lean toward me, as if they wanted to tell me a story. Then, I saw a gravestone that stood out, more ornate than the others. It was Loretta's gravestone. My heart raced, and I approached, touching the cold stone. As soon as my fingers touched the surface, a wave of memories flooded my mind. Visions of love, joy, and then despair. I saw flashes of a wedding that never happened, of a love that was interrupted. Loretta's pain overflowed, and I didn't know how to cope with it. "Why are you trapped here?" I murmured, and in response, a cold breeze swept past me, as if Loretta were trying to answer. The despair grew within me, and I knew I needed to unravel this story. It was more than just a mystery, it was an interrupted life, a lost love, and somehow, I was connected to all of it. When I woke up, the sun was already rising, and the soft light filled my room. I knew I had to tell Kevin what I had seen. There was something deeper at play, and I was determined to discover the truth. "Kevin, we need to talk," I said as soon as I saw him at school. He looked at me with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Something happened during the night, and it's important." "About Loretta?" He frowned, and I nodded. "Yes, I saw her. In the dream. She was in a cemetery, and I saw her gravestone. I feel like she's calling to me, that she needs help." Kevin took a deep breath. "Are you sure you're ready for this? It could be more complicated than it seems. I need to do this, Kevin. I can't ignore it. If she's trapped, maybe I can help her find peace. And somehow, maybe that will help me too," I declared, the determination resonating in my words. "Then let's find out what happened to Loretta." "I'll be by your side, no matter what happens," he replied, and the confidence in his words gave me strength. And so, we began our journey in search of answers, determined to unravel the mysteries surrounding Loretta and the wedding dress that had connected me to her in ways I still didn't fully understand. As Kevin and I sat at the table in the town library, the warm glow of the lamp illuminated the space with a comforting softness, but the tension in the air was palpable. The smell of old paper and ink enveloped me as we examined the ancient records we had found. My heart raced, anticipation mingling with a growing fear. "Look at this, Sarah!" Kevin exclaimed, gesturing excitedly toward a yellowed page. "Here, it seems to talk about Loretta. It says she disappeared on her wedding day." "Let me see," I replied, leaning in closer. The text was faded, but the words jumped out at me, filling my mind with a sense of urgency. "Bride missing. Last seen at the church. No one ever found her." The letters danced before my eyes, but the essence of the story settled in me as if it were being etched into my soul. "She must have had a wonderful life, until that day," I murmured, feeling a strange connection to the bride I had never met. What could have happened for her to just vanish? Kevin shook his head, concern etched on his face. What if it wasn't just an accident? What if someone harmed her? He leaned back in his chair, his expression somber. "We need to know more." The idea of unearthing the past left me unsettled. It felt like opening a Pandora's box. But there was something within me that compelled me to continue. A deep desire to understand, not only Loretta's story but also why I felt so connected to her. After reading, a sense of unease settled in me. "Kevin, have you ever had the feeling that something isn't right about this whole mystery? Like Loretta is calling to us?" "I know what you mean," he replied, looking at me with a slight smile, trying to ease the tension. "It's as if she's trying to communicate in some way. We need more information. Where else can we look?" I was already determined. The thought of leaving Loretta trapped between worlds felt unbearable. We could go to the Old Oak Cemetery. Records indicate that many of her family members are buried there. "Maybe there's a clue about what happened to her," Kevin suggested, his voice filled with enthusiasm. I paused, considering. The idea of visiting a cemetery was something I had never imagined doing, but the connection I felt to Loretta was stronger than my fear. "Let's go. I need to know." The next morning, as the sun rose, casting light on the ancient gravestones, I felt a chill run down my spine. The atmosphere was thick with a profound silence, and every step we took seemed to echo among the twisted trees. Kevin was by my side, his gaze attentive, but also a bit apprehensive. "Are you okay?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Yeah, just a little nervous," I replied, glancing around. "It's like we can feel the stories of these people, as if they're still here, somehow." He nodded, his face reflecting the same seriousness. "Loretta could be here too. ####, if she's really trapped, maybe we can feel it." We continued walking until we reached the back of the cemetery. Loretta's gravestone stood there, solemnly rising among the others, adorned with wilted flowers and a name that seemed to whisper secrets. My heart raced as I approached. "Loretta," I murmured, as if calling out to a long-lost friend. Kevin stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready?" "I don't know if I'm ready, but I need to do this." I took a deep breath and touched the gravestone, feeling the cold stone against my palm. Instantly, a wave of emotions washed over me. A deep pain, confusion, and immense sadness that weren't mine, but seemed to emanate from Loretta. "Loretta, what happened to you?" I whispered, closing my eyes. Images began to flow in my mind like a movie, flashes of a sunny day, a white wedding dress, flowers, and an altar. "Sarah?" Kevin's voice brought me back to reality. "Are you okay?" I saw her," I replied, still dazed. She looked beautiful, but there was something wrong. There was panic in her eyes. "Maybe you managed to connect with her," Kevin said, his voice gentle. "Try to focus. What else did you see?" "An altar, and a crowd." But then everything went dark. There were screams. Loretta was crying, I explained, my eyes filling with tears. "We can help her, Sarah. If she's trapped, maybe we can find out how to free her," Kevin said, his determination giving me courage. With the emotion still stirring within me, I touched the gravestone again, seeking any sign that could guide me. "Loretta, are you here? Please help me understand your suffering." And then, as if in response to my call, a cold breeze swept through the cemetery, causing the leaves of the trees to whisper. I felt a presence, an energy that seemed to intensify around me. "Loretta!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence. "Did you call her?" Kevin asked, his gaze fixed on me. "Yes, I feel like she's here." "What can I do to help her?" I was scared but also determined. The desire to understand Loretta's pain drove me. Kevin was silent for a moment, then said, "Maybe there's something in her past that keeps her here. We need to find out more about her story. Let's look for family records, maybe there's something that explains what happened." I agreed, knowing that the next step in our search would be crucial. But before we could leave, a new wave of emotions enveloped me. I saw Loretta again, her image floating in my mind. She was sad, lost, but at the same time hopeful. "Loretta, you're not alone," I murmured, feeling that my words might cross the barriers between us. "We're here for you. We will uncover the truth. Do you really believe we can help?" Kevin asked, his voice low and reflective. "Yes," I replied firmly. "I think Loretta needs someone to listen to her story. And I want to be that person." What followed was a journey of research, discoveries, and deep emotions. As we delved deeper into Loretta's history, I realized that it wasn't just the search for the truth about her that motivated me, but also a quest to understand myself and my own fears. Loretta was not just a stranger in a wedding dress, she was becoming a part of me, a reflection of my insecurities, my desires, and my deepest fears. As we left the cemetery, the weight of what we were about to uncover hung over us. But there was a spark of hope within me. We would help Loretta find peace. And perhaps, along the way, I would find mine too. Loretta's presence was becoming increasingly intense, as if she were seeping into my life in ways I could never have imagined. The cold winds that once sent shivers down my spine now felt constant, almost as if the bride were wrapping me in a chilly but desperate embrace. I felt caught between two worlds, struggling to understand what this woman, whom I had never met, truly wanted from me. It was on a particularly dark and silent night that I found myself sitting in my room, reviewing the latest notes I had made about my investigation. My grandmother's wedding dress still hung on the hanger, dust glimmering under the soft lamplight. I looked at it and suddenly remembered the sensation I felt when I first tried it on. It was as if a part of Loretta's story was rooted in that fabric, a tale that cried out to be told. "Sarah, you can't keep going like this," Kevin's voice echoed in my mind. He was worried, and I could feel it. He had always been protective, but by this point, I was so immersed in Loretta's pain and confusion that I couldn't see what was happening around me. That night, as I stared at the dress, I gathered my courage and decided I needed to understand what Loretta wanted. The idea that she was trapped between worlds intrigued and terrified me at the same time. What would it take to help her? What could free her? Her desperation became increasingly palpable, and I didn't know how far this would take me. "I can't just ignore this," I murmured to myself, as I picked up the journal I had found with Kevin. "If Loretta needs help, I have to do something." The next morning, I called Kevin, eager to discuss the situation. "Kevin, can we meet? We need to talk about Loretta and what's happening." "Of course, Sarah. I'm worried about you." "Where do you want to meet?" he replied immediately, his concern evident in his voice. "How about the cafe near the library? I feel like we need a quiet place to think." "Perfect. I'll see you in 20 minutes. When I arrived at the cafe, I saw Kevin already waiting for me, a worried expression on his face. He stood up as soon as he saw me and greeted me with a warm hug. "You look better today," but you still have a lot on your mind, don't you? I do, I confessed, pulling out a chair to sit down. It's about Loretta. I feel like she's trying to tell me something. The visions are becoming more intense, Kevin. I feel her pain. The anger, the confusion. It's as if I'm living everything that happened to her. Kevin watched me, his eyes filled with concern and empathy. You know this could be dangerous, right? What do you plan to do? I'm not sure exactly. But I feel like I need to do something to help her. Maybe a seance, something that will allow us to connect with her directly, I suggested, feeling adrenaline coursing through my veins. He hesitated, biting his lower lip. A seance? That could be risky, Sarah. You might attract things you can't control. I know, but I can't ignore this. Loretta is trapped, and maybe I'm the only one who can help her, I insisted. Kevin took a deep breath, clearly torn. If you think this is what you need to do, I'll be by your side. But we have to be careful. His words resonated with me. I knew what we were about to do was risky, but it was a risk I was willing to take. Loretta needed help, and I couldn't just stand by. In the following days, the atmosphere around me seemed to shift. The weight of responsibility followed me, and Loretta's visions became more frequent and intense. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of her wedding dress, the anguished look on her face, the moment she was left at the altar. It was a pain that wasn't mine, but I felt it as if it were. Finally, the day of the séance arrived. I prepared the space, lighting candles and arranging everything to ensure the connection would be as strong as possible. Kevin arrived early to help, and when he saw what I was doing, his expression was a mix of concern and support. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, watching the candles flicker in the night's light. "No, but I can't turn back now," I replied, feeling anxiety take hold of me. "Loretta needs me." ###, he nodded, his gaze fixed on the candles. "So let's do this. We're in this together." As the last candle was lit, we sat in a circle, our hands intertwined. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "Loretta," I called in my mind, "if you are here, please give us a sign." The minutes dragged on like hours, and the tension in the air was palpable. Then, a gentle breeze began to blow, even though there were no open windows. The flames of the candles flickered, and suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped drastically. A shiver ran down my spine, and I knew Loretta was drawing near. "Loretta, we are here for you," I said, my voice trembling. "We want to understand what happened to you." The room fell silent, and then, a soft yet sorrowful voice echoed, "You found me." Loretta's presence was intense and enveloping. I could feel her pain, her sadness. "Loretta, what happened on your wedding day? Why are you trapped here?" I asked, my voice filled with compassion. She hesitated before responding. "He left me, at the altar. I waited for him, but he never came back. He didn't love me for real." Her words cut through my heart. I couldn't imagine the pain she must have felt on that day, that moment of expectation and joy that turned into despair. "Loretta, you deserve to understand what happened. You need to let this go," I urged, feeling the urgency in my voice. I can't let go. He was my love." The desperation in Loretta's voice was palpable, and I knew it wouldn't be easy to convince her. "But you need to understand that he wasn't the right man for you. Someone who would leave you at the most important moment doesn't deserve your love," Kevin interjected, his voice firm yet gentle. "You don't understand. He was perfect for me." "I just wanted to be loved," Loretta protested, her pain resonating within our souls. "You are loved, Loretta. You deserve to be truly loved," I said, trying to reach her in her despair. "We need to free you, so you can move forward." She hesitated, and for a moment, I felt a weakness in her presence. "But how? How can I let go of something I never truly had?" True love isn't just about being with someone, but about accepting who you are and what you deserve, I said, my voice stronger now. You can't remain tied to a past that is gone. You need to find peace. The tension in the room was almost unbearable, and I knew we were on the brink of something significant. Loretta was struggling internally, and I could feel her confusion reflecting in me. Kevin and I exchanged glances, and he squeezed my hand, as if to say we were in this fight together. We will help you, Loretta. Together, we can do this, I promised, my determination growing. With that, the room began to vibrate with intense energy. Loretta's presence seemed to strengthen, and I knew it was the right moment to help her find the freedom she so desperately sought. Loretta, you need to trust us. We are here to guide you. I want to, but I'm scared, she confessed, her voice now softer, almost a whisper. You are not alone. We are with you, Kevin affirmed, his unwavering confidence giving me strength. For a moment, the room was silent, and then, with a surge of courage, I decided to take a risk. So let's do this together. Let's free you. Leave your fears and pain behind, Loretta. You deserve a happy ending. Her presence began to glow brightly, and I knew we were on the right path. Loretta was starting to open up, and the connection that had once felt so distant was now within our reach. I don't want to suffer anymore. I want freedom, she finally said, her voice echoing in us like a lament. Then let's take that step together. Remember, you are stronger than you think and deserve peace, I reassured her. The séance was scheduled for Saturday night, and the tension in the air was palpable. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but the thought of connecting with Loretta made me both anxious and terrified. That wedding dress, with its mystery and sadness, had become a part of me. As night fell, Kevin and I settled into the room, the candles lit around us casting dancing shadows on the walls. Are you ready for this? Kevin asked, his voice low and a bit hesitant. I'm not sure. What if Loretta doesn't want to communicate? What if she's angry? I looked at him, my heart racing. What if she blames me? If she has something to say, she will find us. We're here to help, Sarah. And if anything goes wrong, I'll be by your side, he replied, trying to reassure me. I nodded, but the truth was that the idea of invoking a spirit made me nervous. Kevin arranged the cards and candles in a circle on the floor, preparing the space. The atmosphere grew darker as we turned off the lights, with only the candle flames illuminating our faces. Let's begin, he said, and I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to calm myself. Loretta, if you are here, please make your presence known. At first, nothing happened. The silence was almost deafening. I could hear my own heart pounding fast and hard. Then, a cold draft swept through the room, making me shiver. The candle flames flickered, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Loretta, we are here for you, Kevin said, his voice now firmer. We want to understand what happened to you. Suddenly, I felt a presence. It was as if the air around us had changed, becoming heavier, denser. I slowly opened my eyes, and to my surprise, the light seemed to concentrate in a point before us. A figure began to form, a feminine silhouette shrouded in mist. Loretta? I whispered, my voice almost failing. She appeared before us, an ethereal vision in a wedding dress that seemed faded and torn, reflecting a past filled with pain. Her eyes were deep and sorrowful, and a mix of anger and despair radiated from her. The air turned icy, and I felt a growing pressure in my chest. Why are you here? Her voice was a whisper, yet sounded like a distant echo, reverberating in the room. We want to help you, I said, trying to stay calm. Know that you are not alone. Help? No one has ever helped me. Loretta exclaimed, her figure trembling. I was left at the altar. The man I loved abandoned me. No one cares about what happened to me. The intensity of her pain hit me like a wave. I could feel her despair, her anger, as if they were my own. Loretta, we want to understand. Why did this happen? What do you know about him? She hesitated, her anger transforming into deep sadness. He didn't love me. It was just about status. He wanted a wife to make him look important. And I was just a trophy. Kevin, who was beside me, gathered his courage and asked, who was he? Tell us his name, Loretta. We need to know. Edward, she replied, her gaze empty. Edward always wanted to be someone. And I was just a tool for him. On our wedding day, I was so happy. But he never showed up. I saw him walking away with another woman, laughing, as if I didn't matter. The pain in her voice was palpable. I could imagine the scene, the expectation of a love that never materialized. Loretta, this isn't fair. You don't deserve this, I said, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. Fair, she repeated, laughing bitterly. Nothing is fair. I'm trapped here, between worlds, because I can't let go. And you, why are you so interested in my story? Are you afraid of being left behind too? I hesitated. The truth was, I was starting to feel a strange connection with Loretta. Her pain resonated within me, and I couldn't ignore it. I am about to get married. And sometimes, I get scared about what that means. I'm afraid of committing, of being left. I don't want to go through what you went through. Loretta's expression softened slightly, as if she were seeing something in me. You are more like me than you realize. What do you really feel for that man? Is it love or just fear of being alone? Hashtag, her words penetrated me, and I felt exposed. I don't know. Sometimes, I feel like I'm doing this because it's what's expected of me. I don't want to fail. But I also want to be sure that he's the right person. You need to find your truth, Sarah, Loretta replied, her voice now softer. Don't let fear guide you. True love shouldn't be based on insecurities. Kevin looked at me, and I realized he was attentive to every word Loretta said. Loretta, what can we do to help you find peace? He asked, his voice calm. Set me free, she screamed, desperation taking over again. I can't leave until the truth about Edward is revealed. He needs to know what he did. The pain and betrayal must be exposed. I looked at Kevin, and an idea began to form in my mind. Loretta, if we find out the truth about him, can you finally rest? Maybe, she replied, her gaze softening again. But it won't be easy. The pain he caused me still lives in me. He needs to suffer like I suffered. We don't want you to suffer anymore, I said, feeling a deep empathy for her. But we need to understand. You don't want him to have control over you, right? You need to free yourself. Freedom, she murmured, as if experiencing the word for the first time. What is it, really? It's such a distant concept for me. Kevin and I exchanged a glance, and I felt we were on the brink of something significant. Loretta, I said, think about how you would feel if you could leave all of this behind. If you could go in peace. She hesitated, and the sadness in her eyes was almost unbearable. How can I let go? The pain is all I know. And what if I don't know how to live without it? You just need to believe you deserve more, I said, with all the sincerity I could muster. We all deserve love and peace, Loretta. You can choose to leave the pain behind and find the freedom you so desire. A tear slipped down Loretta's cheek, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Do you really believe I can find peace? Yes, I replied without hesitation. Together, we can help you find that peace. But you need to want it. She looked at us, and for the first time, the anger and pain began to dissipate. If I can let this go, if I can find freedom, maybe I can finally rest. Yes, you can, Kevin said, his voice firm. We will uncover the truth about Edward and give you the peace you deserve. Loretta's presence began to fade, but before she disappeared completely, she looked at me with a gentle expression. "Thank you, Sarah. You've given me hope." And, in an instant, she was gone. Silence filled the room again, and I let myself drop to the floor, exhausted. Kevin joined me, and we stared at each other for a long moment. "That was intense," he said, breaking the silence. "But I feel like we're on the right path." "I do too," I replied, my heart still racing. "But now we need to uncover the truth about Edward. It's time for Loretta to find the peace she so deserves." Shadows danced around me as I sat on the bed, the night light filtering through the curtains, creating unsettling patterns on the floor. Loretta's wedding dress, which I had found in my grandmother's attic, seemed to pulse with a strange, almost hypnotic energy. Since I put it on, my life had transformed into a whirlwind of emotions and visions. Now, it was not just a dress, it was a portal to a past that cried out to be heard. That night, Loretta's memories enveloped me like a heavy cloak. I felt her pain, her anger, and, most importantly, her confusion. Sitting there in my room, I couldn't help but let the tears flow down my face. What had happened to her? What kept her trapped between worlds? The connection I felt with the bride was intense, her emotions were mine. Then, a cold breeze swept through the room, as if a whisper had filled the air. I looked around, my heart racing. "Loretta?" I called, my voice trembling slightly. There was no answer, but the sensation of her presence was palpable. I closed my eyes, trying to concentrate. Her sadness was like a wave, and I felt it flooding my being. With each breath, her anguish seemed to intertwine with my own story. "Why are you tormenting me?" I murmured, frustrated. "What do you want from me?" The answer came in the form of an image, a wedding ceremony, white flowers, smiling faces. But in an instant, everything changed. The groom's smile morphed into a look of disdain, and I saw Loretta, standing at the altar, alone, while everyone around her vanished. The vision was so vivid that I could feel her pain. "No, no, no!" I screamed, covering my face with my hands. "This can't be true. Sarah, what's happening?" Kevin, my best friend, entered the room, concerned. He was always there, but at that moment, I didn't know how to explain to him what was happening. How could I? I didn't understand it myself. I'm seeing things, Kevin. Loretta, she's showing me. My words tumbled out in a whirlwind as I tried to organize the confused thoughts in my mind. She's trapped, and I don't know how to help. Kevin approached, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You need to calm down. Let's talk about this. What did you see?" She was alone at the altar, and everyone abandoned her. The groom, he didn't really love her. He left her for another woman. Tears streamed down my face, and I wiped them away in anger. "It's so unfair, Kevin. She deserves to know the truth." "And you?" Kevin asked, his intense gaze fixed on me. "You can't let this consume you. You know you have your own life to live." "I know, but..." I hesitated, the weight of his words resonating in my mind. "I can't ignore what I'm feeling. It's like I'm living this with her. Her pain is becoming my pain." Kevin took a deep breath. "You need to distance yourself a bit. Look, why don't we try to investigate more about Loretta? Her story might give us some answers." "Maybe you're right," I agreed slowly, feeling a temporary lightness. "But at the same time, I feel like I can't just leave her. She needs me. Sarah, you have to take care of yourself, too. We can't help someone if we're both sinking together." He looked at me, concern etched on his face. "Let's do this together. We'll find out who Loretta was, why she got stuck, and, if we can, help her find peace." The idea of working together gave me a glimmer of hope. "Okay, but I promise I won't let myself get carried away." "I can't. I can't lose control. I promise I'll be here with you, every step of the way, Kevin said, and I believed him. His friendship had always been a safe harbor for me, and I needed that now more than ever. That night, I couldn't sleep. Loretta's visions continued to haunt my mind. I saw her floating among the shadows, her sad and distant gaze, as if she were trapped in an endless cycle of pain. The connection I felt was intensifying, and I was scared. Scared of losing my identity, scared of drowning in her sorrow. I woke up the next day feeling exhausted but determined. Kevin and I spent the morning revisiting the notes we had made about Loretta. The diary, the newspaper clippings, everything seemed to intertwine in a web of mystery. Look at this, Kevin said, pointing to a passage from an old article. It says that on her wedding day, the groom disappeared, and everyone believed he abandoned her. But why? I murmured, Loretta's anguish resonating in my chest. How can someone do that? She was so happy, so hopeful. Sometimes, people aren't who we think they are, Kevin replied, his tone grave. Maybe he took advantage of her in some way. What do you think will happen when we uncover the truth? I hesitated. I don't know. What if it's too painful? What if it only leaves her more trapped? ###, we need to try, Kevin insisted, the determination in his eyes giving me strength. You're already so involved. We can't back down now. The day passed in a blur. The visions began to intensify again, and I could no longer distinguish between what was real and what was part of Loretta's past. I found myself walking through dark corridors, shadows moving around me, the pain and disillusionment of an abandoned bride surrounding me. It was as if I was living her story, and it left me in a state of constant panic. Sarah, are you okay? Kevin's voice brought me back to reality. He was by my side, his expression worried. You were lost again. I feel like I'm losing control, Kevin. It's as if I'm becoming her. The truth was, I was scared. What would happen if I couldn't return to myself? I can't let that happen. You're strong, Sarah. You'll make it. Just remember who you are. He held my hand, and the connection was comforting. Let's continue our research, and as soon as we learn more, we can find a way to help Loretta. With a nod, I decided I needed to face this. Loretta needed help, and so did I. Her struggle was my struggle, and at the same time, I couldn't forget to take care of myself. The journey was just beginning, and I knew that with every step I took, the truth could not only free Loretta but also liberate me from my own fears. The afternoon light filtered through the dusty windows of the town library, where Kevin and I had decided to delve deeper into our research on the history of the wedding dress and the tragic Loretta. The smell of old paper and the feeling of being surrounded by so many untold stories added an air of mystery and anticipation to our work. I was nervous, but the determination to discover more about Loretta overshadowed any apprehension. Sarah, look at this! Kevin exclaimed, holding up a yellowed newspaper he had found in a pile of clippings. His face lit up with discovery. He came closer to me, his eyes shining with the excitement of a detective unraveling a great mystery. It's about her disappearance. It seems she never made it to the altar. My heart raced. I moved closer to him, and together we read the headline, Bride Disappears on Wedding Day, the town in shock. The article contained details about the ceremony scheduled for April 12, 1923, and how Loretta, the bride, simply didn't show up. As I read, a wave of sadness washed over me. How could this happen? I murmured, feeling a tightness in my chest. She should have been the happiest woman that day. Kevin leaned in to take a closer look at the newspaper. It seems there were rumors that the groom was having an affair with another woman. That must have been devastating for her. His voice had a grave, almost respectful tone. If you were left at the altar, what would you do? I closed my eyes for a moment, imagining the pain Loretta must have felt. I had experienced some insecurities in my own relationship with Mark, but nothing compared to that. I don't know, maybe I would seek answers. Or perhaps I would try to move on. Kevin studied me for a moment, as if contemplating the depth of my answer. I just hope she found some form of peace. That phrase echoed within me. What did it mean to find peace, especially when the pain felt so present? We decided to continue our search. With the newspaper in hand, we began to look for more information in other archives and records. As we rummaged through the shelves filled with books and documents, an old diary caught my attention. It was hidden among volumes of local history. I pulled it closer, and upon opening it, the smell of aged paper and faded ink filled the air. The pages were filled with delicate handwriting, and I soon realized it was Loretta's diary. "Kevin, look at this," I called, holding the diary carefully. It must be hers. Excitement made me breathless. He came over, leaning in to see. "Can you read it?" he asked, clearly intrigued. "I'll try." I turned the pages slowly, absorbing the words that seemed to whisper secrets from a distant past. "Here," I began to read aloud, "today is my wedding day. I feel so nervous. He is everything I've ever wanted, but something tells me it's not what it seems." Kevin frowned. "This is heartbreaking." She was worried even before the ceremony. "Yes," I replied, my voice trembling. "She mentions hearing rumors about the groom and a mysterious woman." I continued reading, my hands shaking slightly. "I can't let this affect me. I love him, and he loves me. I feel like everything will be okay." "Poor Loretta," Kevin murmured, shocked by the intensity of the situation. She was so hopeful. I stopped reading and looked at him. "Kevin, this is much more than just a love story. It's about pain, betrayal, and loneliness. She needs help." I was beginning to feel more connected to Loretta than ever. It was as if we were sharing an experience, even if separated by time. "We need to understand what happened exactly on her wedding day. That might give us clues on how to free her," Kevin suggested, the passion for the investigation shining in his eyes. "I agree. If we find more details about what happened that day, maybe we can uncover how she was left behind," I said, determined. "And maybe we can offer her some form of closure." Kevin nodded, and we continued to flip through the diary, finding more entries that revealed Loretta's emotional state. In one, she described her love for the groom but was soon swept away by uncertainty. There was something she didn't know. Something that kept her tied to that day, I commented, more to myself than to Kevin. "Do you think that could be the key to discovering what happened?" he asked. "Maybe. Look here." I pointed to a passage that mentioned a ritual performed in her family. "She mentions a ritual her grandmother used to do to ensure the love was true. This could be important." "A ritual? What does that mean?" Kevin seemed intrigued, his eyes lighting up. "I'll read more," I said, turning my attention back to the pages. "She mentions that the ritual must be performed in the presence of true love, and that it's a way to ensure the love isn't broken. But something happened on her wedding day that prevented her from completing it. Then we have to find out what happened and if we can still perform that ritual," Kevin suggested, his expression showing he was becoming more invested in the story. "Yes, it may be our only way to help Loretta," I said, filled with hope. "But we need more information. Let's look for someone who can tell us more about her family or the history of her lineage." "Great idea," he agreed. "Maybe there's a way to connect all of this. Let's go to the town's family archive. They might have records that can help us." With a renewed focus, my adrenaline surged. I knew we were on the right path, and the thought of finding a solution to Loretta's pain motivated me. We both left the library, the pages of the diary still in my mind, and the promise of answers guiding us. "We can do this, Sarah," Kevin said, looking at me with an encouraging smile. "We can't let her story end without a conclusion." "Yes, we will." For Loretta, I replied, feeling a renewed determination. Her fate was now intertwined with ours, and I was ready to uncover the truth, no matter what that meant. The day of the ritual finally arrived. I woke up with my heart racing, a mix of anxiety and anticipation coursing through my veins. The sky was overcast, as if the universe itself was aware of the gravity of what we were about to do. Kevin found me in the kitchen, where I was trying to drink coffee to calm my nerves. He looked at me, his expression serious, and said, "Are you ready for this, Sarah?" I hesitated, looking at the cup in my hand as if the answer was written in the foam of the milk. "I don't know, Kevin. What if something goes wrong? What if Loretta doesn't want to go?" He leaned closer, placing his hand over mine. "We have to try. This is for her, and also for you. You can't keep carrying this weight." His words touched me deeply. Kevin had always been a loyal friend, and his concern was genuine. I took a deep breath, trying to find my strength. "You're right. Let's do this." After one last sip of coffee, we headed to the old church where Loretta was supposed to have gotten married. The journey was silent, filled with thoughts swirling around what we hoped to find. When we arrived, the scene was desolate. The church was in ruins, with peeling walls and broken windows. Nature had taken over, with plants and moss covering the remnants of the structure. "This is it, isn't it?" I asked, surveying the scene. "Yes. This is where she was left at the altar," Kevin replied, his voice low and reverent. A wave of sadness washed over me as I imagined Loretta, dressed as a bride, waiting for a love that never came. "Let's go inside," I suggested, and Kevin nodded, his expression determined. As we crossed the threshold, a penetrating chill enveloped us. The air felt denser, and a sense of oppression took hold of me. I could feel Loretta's presence, as if she were watching us. "Do you feel that?" I asked, trying to control the tremor in my voice. "Yes. It's like the place is alive," Kevin replied, looking around. The interior of the church was dark, with only a few rays of light filtering through the dust and darkness. We walked cautiously among broken pews and debris, our footsteps echoing in the solitude of the space. As we reached the altar, the atmosphere grew even heavier. "Let's get ready," Kevin said, taking out the items we had brought, candles, a crystal, and Loretta's diary. He lit the candles, creating a soft glow that danced against the walls. While he worked, I couldn't help but gaze at the altar, imagining how the ceremony that never happened would have been. "Sarah, are you with me?" Kevin asked, interrupting my thoughts. "I am. Let's begin." I sat beside him, and together we started to recite the ritual we found in the diary. The words were ancient and full of meaning, and as we spoke, the air around us seemed to vibrate. "Loretta, if you are here, please show us a sign," Kevin said, his voice steady. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt nervous, but there was a strange sense of hope in my heart. "I feel like something is changing," I murmured, watching the flickering candles with an invisible breeze. "Yes, me too." Then, suddenly, a cold draft swept through the church. The candles flickered, and a whisper, almost inaudible, floated through the air. It was as if distant voices were speaking, and I wondered if it was Loretta trying to communicate. "Loretta, we are here for you," I shouted, my voice echoing against the empty walls. The environment began to change. The shadows seemed to come alive, dancing on the walls as a feeling of electricity filled the air. Kevin and I exchanged glances, both worried and excited at the same time. "Sarah, I have a strange feeling," he said, his voice trembling. "What's happening?" "I don't know, but it feels like she's getting closer," I replied, my heart racing. Then, a vision began to form in my mind. I saw flashes of a wedding, the church filled with guests, soft music playing in the background. But suddenly, the images changed. I saw Loretta, beautiful and scared, standing before the altar, her fiancé looking at her with disdain. "No, no!" I screamed, covering my eyes with my hands. "This can't be happening. Sarah! What are you seeing?" Kevin asked, alarmed. "It's Loretta. She's being left," I said, tears streaming down my face. The pain I felt was unbearable, as if I were living the scene firsthand. "Try to focus, Sarah. You need to be strong," Kevin exclaimed, gripping my arm. But the visions intensified. I saw Loretta's fiancé walking away, the look of disgust on his face. I saw the pain in her eyes, the confusion that consumed her. Then the scene transformed into a nightmare, the altar breaking apart around us, and I realized that Loretta's despair was seeping into me. "No!" I cried, trying to resist, but the energy was overwhelming. "Kevin, I'm losing control. Sarah, come back. Focus on me," he said, his voice firm like an anchor. I struggled against the wave of emotion, trying to hold on to reality. I knew I had to help Loretta, but her pain was becoming mine. The space around us began to spin, and I saw shadows dancing in a threatening manner. "Loretta, we're here to help you," I shouted, feeling the need to reach her spirit. "Don't despair." The response was a scream, an echo that reverberated through the church, making the walls tremble. "Set me free." Loretta's voice resonated, full of pain and sadness. "Why are you here?" "We want to help you find peace," Kevin replied, his voice rising above the chaos. "You don't have to suffer anymore." The candles began to extinguish one by one, and the temperature dropped drastically. I was terrified, but Kevin's determination encouraged me. "Loretta, you are not alone," I shouted, trying to convey all the empathy I felt. "You can leave the past behind." But the response was a heavy silence, and the feeling of despair grew stronger. "What more can we do?" Kevin asked, his voice trembling, and I knew we needed a clear sign. "We need to show Loretta that she deserves freedom," I said, determined. "That she can let it all go." As soon as the words left my mouth, I felt a new wave of energy. It was as if a light began to shine in the darkness, and the shadows started to dissipate. Loretta's whispers transformed into a deep lament, and I knew we were at a critical point. "Loretta, you don't have to feel trapped anymore," I cried, my voice resonating with the truth I felt. "You can find peace." The air began to vibrate with the intensity of the emotion, and for a moment, everything fell silent. Then, an image of Loretta appeared in my mind again, no longer as an abandoned bride, but as a free woman, dancing in the sunlight, a smile of happiness on her face. "This is you, Loretta. You can be free," I said, feeling a wave of hope. And in that moment, the atmosphere around us began to change. The light seemed brighter, and the cold that surrounded the space began to dissipate. Kevin and I exchanged glances, our hearts beating in unison. We knew we were close to achieving something important. But the scene of the altar was still trapped in my mind, and Loretta's internal struggle was not completely resolved. The ritual was just beginning, and I knew the path to her liberation and my own was still filled with challenges. The atmosphere in the old church was heavy, almost palpable. The afternoon light filtered through the broken windows, casting shadows that danced on the walls in ruins. The place, once filled with joy and promises of eternal love, now exuded an air of desolation. Kevin and I were at the altar, with a circle drawn in chalk around us, following the instructions from Loretta's diary. My hand trembled as I held the candle we had lit to invoke her spirit. Anticipation and fear mixed in my chest, and I knew we were about to confront something far beyond our understanding. "Are you ready, Sarah?" Kevin asked, his voice taking on a serious tone. I could see the worry in his eyes, but there was also a quiet determination. He was here by my side, and that gave me some courage. "I'm not sure I'll ever truly be ready for this," I replied, trying to smile, but the smile faded on my lips. But I feel like we need to do this. Hashtag hashtag hashtag, he nodded, and together we began to recite the words of the ritual we found in the diary. With each syllable that left our lips, a wave of energy seemed to pulse around us. The candles flickered, and the air grew colder. I could feel Loretta's presence drawing near, as if she were about to materialize at any moment. Suddenly, a cold breeze cut through the space, and I saw a figure appear before us. It was Loretta, surrounded by an ethereal glow, her wedding dress floating as if submerged in water. Her expression was one of pain and confusion, and my heart ached at the sight of her. "Why did you call me?" her voice echoed, soft and melancholic. "Why didn't you leave me in peace?" "Loretta, we want to help you," Kevin said, stepping forward. "We discovered what happened to you. We know you were left at the altar." She looked at us, her eyes filled with suffering and anger. "The truth? The truth is that I was betrayed by the one who was supposed to love me. He abandoned me, and now I am trapped here, between worlds. You cannot understand the pain this causes." "But we understand, Loretta," I said, feeling the weight of her words. I also fear commitment, being left behind. I may not have gone through what you did, but I know the pain of unrequited love." She scrutinized me, her eyes narrowing. "You cannot compare yourself to me. I was about to be happy, to have everything I ever dreamed of. And then he just left." Kevin, increasingly distressed, interrupted. "Loretta, we need you to tell us what really happened. What happened to your fiancé? Why did he abandon you?" Loretta's expression darkened. "He didn't love me. He wanted my status, my family. I was just a means to an end. On the day of our wedding, he turned and left me for another woman. I couldn't understand. And now I'm stuck here, waiting for something that will never happen." I felt as if a wave of empathy enveloped me. The fear I felt regarding my relationship with Mark mingled with Loretta's pain. "You're not trapped because of me. You need to let this go, Loretta. There's no point in living in the past." She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Let go? You think that's easy? You don't know what it's like to be betrayed, to be left at the altar with everyone watching, expecting you to be happy. I am an echo, a shadow of what could have been. You don't understand." "But I want to understand," I insisted, trying to reach the humanity within her pain. "I'm not here to judge, but to help. We need you to free yourself. You have to leave that past behind." The energy in the air began to shift. Loretta seemed to hesitate, the rage and pain battling within her. "What if I can't? What if I'm condemned to wander here forever?" "You're not condemned," Kevin intervened. "You have to accept what happened. You have to forgive what cannot be changed. And above all, you need to find peace within yourself." Loretta looked at us, tears streaming down her pale face. "What if the truth is that I can't forgive? What if anger is the only thing that keeps me alive?" "Then you'll never find the freedom you seek," I said, my heart racing. "You need to decide whether you want to remain bound to this pain or if you want to move forward. I know it's hard, but you have to try. It's not just about you. It's about everyone you left behind, too." Loretta's expression softened slightly, but the pain was still there. "What if I don't know how?" Kevin looked at me, and I realized he was just as invested in this struggle as I was. "We're here to help you, Loretta. You don't have to do this alone. Together, we can help you find freedom." She hesitated, and the air around us vibrated with the tension of her emotions. Freedom. I don't even know what that means anymore. "Freedom is letting go of what no longer serves you," I said, feeling that every word I spoke was an attempt to reach her. "It's accepting that the past is part of you, but it doesn't have to define who you are. You can be more than the abandoned bride. You can be the woman who overcame it." Loretta looked at us, the confusion in her gaze giving way to a spark of hope. "What if I try? Then we'll be here for you," Kevin assured her. "No matter what happens, you're not alone." Her presence began to intensify, and I realized we were at a crucial point. "Loretta, look at us. You don't have to hide anymore. You can free yourself from this pain. The choice is yours." With a hesitant gesture, Loretta reached out her hand. I want to try. But I don't know if I can." "You can," I said, encouragingly. "We'll do this together." At that moment, the light around us began to shine more brightly, and I knew we were about to cross a line. Loretta seemed to hesitate, but her emotions were stronger than her fear. The connection between us was palpable, and I felt that the truth was about to be revealed. "I don't want to be a shadow anymore," she finally said, her voice now softer. "But I don't know if I can let go of the pain." "Then let's face it together," I said, holding Kevin's hand. "We're here to support you." But then, a surge of anger overtook Loretta once more. "And what if I decide that anger is all I have? What if I choose not to forgive?" "Then you'll be trapped here forever," I replied firmly. "Is that really what you want? To be a shadow of the pain you suffered?" She hesitated, and I could see the internal struggle in her eyes. The anger and pain were there, but there was also a glimmer of hope. Kevin and I needed her to realize that the path to freedom wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. "Loretta, you have the power to choose," Kevin said, his voice steady. "And that choice is yours. You can stay trapped in this cycle of pain, or you can try to find the peace you desire." The tension between us seemed to intensify, and I felt that the answer was about to emerge. Loretta looked at us, her expression still confused, but now there was something different in her gaze. A doubt, perhaps. A desire for change. "Then it's decided," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I want to try." A wave of relief washed over me, but I knew the struggle was far from over. The path to freedom would be arduous, but we were ready to face it together. The air was heavy, almost palpable, as I found myself at the altar of the ancient church, now in ruins. The smell of mold and rotting wood mixed with the anxiety pulsing in my chest. Kevin stood beside me, his gaze expressing concern and determination. We knew we were about to confront something much greater than ourselves. Loretta, the lost bride, the woman whose pain I had felt in every fiber of my being, was about to manifest. The atmosphere was charged with energy. Shadows danced on the peeling walls as if whispering forgotten secrets. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. "We're here for you, Loretta," I murmured, unsure if she could hear. Kevin held my hand tightly. "Remember, Sarah, you're not alone. We're in this together." His gentle voice provided some comfort, but the truth was that I was terrified. What would happen next? The ritual we planned could bring peace to Loretta, but it could also erupt into chaos. Below us, a profound silence reigned, as if the world around us had paused to listen. Then, a presence began to take form. The air grew cold, and suddenly, Loretta appeared before us. Her ethereal figure radiated sadness and confusion. It was as if she were caught in a spiral of pain, and I could feel the intensity of her emotions almost as if they were my own. "Why did you bring me here?" Loretta asked, her voice sounding like a distant breeze, yet filled with an urgency that made me shiver. "We're here to help you," I said, trying to keep my composure. "We want you to find peace." She looked at me with suspicion, her eyes reflecting the pain of years of abandonment. "Peace? Hashtag, how can I find peace when my heart has been shattered? How can I let go of the love I never had?" Those words pierced my chest. I knew what it was like to lose, to long for something that never materialized. At the same time, an idea began to form in my mind. "Loretta, you need to understand that true freedom comes from letting go. You're trapped in a past that can't be changed. Just like me. I'm trapped too. She frowned, confused. You. What do you know about pain? You're about to get married, to achieve what I couldn't. But I'm not sure I'm ready for that, I confessed, the truth slipping from my lips. I feel like I'm carrying the weight of your hopes and fears. I'm afraid to commit, to open myself up to love and be hurt again. You're reflecting what I can't face. A wave of anger washed over Loretta's face, and I could feel her desperation. You can't compare me to you. I lost everything. But you don't have to keep suffering. I shouted, adrenaline coursing through me. You're stuck in a cycle of pain that won't set you free. And I'm trapped too, Loretta. You are the projection of my fears. I'm trying to break free from you, but you need to free yourself first. Kevin looked at me, surprised by the intensity of my words. Sarah, you're reaching her. Keep going. I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. Loretta, you need to understand that your fiancé was not the true love you deserved. He left you because he was weak, not because you weren't worthy of love. And I have to let go of my own fears about love. I need to accept that, like you, I can be hurt, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't try. Loretta's expression began to change. Anger gave way to deep confusion, as if she were starting to understand. You're not just here to free me. You also need liberation, don't you? With a lump in my throat, I nodded. Yes, Loretta. I want to be free. I want to love without fear, but I need to confront what's holding me back. She hesitated, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I don't know how to let go. I don't know how to move on. I stepped forward, the connection between us intensifying. The first step is to accept that you are not defined by this pain. You deserve a happy ending, Loretta, just like I do. I'm here to help you find that, but you need to help me too. You need to show me how. Loretta blinked, and the expression of pain on her face began to soften. How can I do that? Let me into your pain. Let me see what you saw, feel what you felt. Together, we can break free, I said, determination growing inside me. Let's face this side by side. She hesitated, but then slowly reached her hand toward me. A long time has passed, but maybe I can try. Then, a wave of emotions began to envelop us. I felt as if we were one, and the memories of Loretta flooded my mind. I saw flashes of her life, the wedding day, the hopeful look on her face, the euphoria that turned into despair as she watched her fiancé abandon her. The pain was palpable, and I felt it as if it were my own. But then, amidst the pain, I saw moments of genuine love, shared laughter, dreams, and promises that were never fulfilled. This was not just about the tragedy of loss, but also about the beauty of the love Loretta had experienced, even if just for a brief moment. And then I realized that her pain was only a part of her story, not the whole. Loretta, you are more than this pain. You are a strong woman, capable of loving again. You don't have to remain stuck in a past that can't be changed, I said, my words flowing freely. You can let this go. And so can I. A gentle light began to emanate from Loretta, and the expression on her face shifted from anguish to a growing serenity. You're right. I'm not just the abandoned bride. I am so much more than that. Kevin, who had been watching silently, finally joined us. Loretta, you deserve peace. And Sarah, you do too. Together, you can find this freedom. Loretta looked at us, and then, with a shy smile, she began to fade. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for helping me see the truth. Now, I can let go. I watched her dissipate, and with her departure, a sense of lightness began to fill my heart. Loretta was no longer just a projection of my fears, she had become part of my journey of self-discovery. I had found the courage to face my own feelings and fears. I looked at Kevin, who was still holding my hand, and I knew that the change had begun. The connection between us was stronger now, and though there was much to explore, I was ready for it. "Let's go home, Kevin," I said, my voice firm and determined. "We have a lot to talk about." "Yes, we do," he smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free.